What's up guys, and in today's video I've got a very special video because it is day 30 of making videos every single day. So today we're going to be talking mainly about how 30 days of videos has rewired my brain and scaled my hustle in terms of who I am and the person that I've become over these past 30 days, and just so excited to share this video with you because today we're going to be going through how this has basically changed me as a person and the thought processes that I have gone through in terms of these past 30 days. So like I said, with these videos the mission is to show our bills raw and real, to show the good, the bad, the ugly, what it is that we're actively implementing in terms of mental models so that we can scale it up into the future, to solve big problems within businesses and organizations, basically to be the chief problem solver within the organizations and clients that we work with, and also just to call in visionaries, basically people that understand what it is that we're actively doing on a day-to-day basis, what we're solving for, and also just to connect with cool people building cool things at the same time. So how these 30 days of making daily videos has rewired my brain is broken down into 5 simple steps as always, and I'm super excited to share these with you. So number one is outputs a habit, overthinking is dead, because the number one thing for me personally was overthinking videos and saying, hey, I have so many ideas that I have that I want to share, so why did I stall in terms of overthinking, like, hey, we need to make sure that the angle is perfect, and saying, hey, I used to sit on ideas tweaking scripts forever because I would always be such a micromanager or a nano manager to say, hey, each and every word needs to be phrased XYZ to make sure that the positioning and the messaging is accurate. But now just realizing, hey, I just record these videos and just ship them. So I just press record and I just literally just go off a riff and say, hey, daily reps murdered procrastination, to say, hey, procrastination is now dead simply because I've stopped overthinking these videos and overcomplicating them, and just saying, hey, if I want to get to where I want to get to, let's just brute force these videos and just take the camera and just record. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, let's just go in it. And I think there's also an element of authenticity because I do stutter a lot sometimes, so now you guys also just get to know that about me, and also just from my personal perspective to say, hey, from day one I struggled a lot in terms of articulating the words that I wanted to say in these daily videos. But now look at me, like, through so many iterations of me just getting the camera, pressing record, and not really planning these videos, I mean, apart from the documents, but just saying, hey, I need to make sure that these videos are good to go, they're off the highest standard, and just pressing record on these videos and just getting it done, because the results is the most important thing. And that's one thing that I have had as a takeaway from this, and saying, hey, this has shifted my mindset, and saying, hey, perfectionism is a trap. Done beats perfect every single time, because the result is what matters, and through consistency and through consistent actions, I have been able to produce these 30-day videos in a row, and saying, hey, I need to make sure that perfectionism, as much as I want to strive for having the perfect video, right now the most important thing is just to get the videos out and just iterate on what it is that I'm actively doing. Because if I'm actively just getting things out, iterating, and also implementing that in my business, why would it be a struggle to ultimately implement it in what it is that we're actively doing on a day-to-day basis? And just using that same principles and same thought process in terms of, hey, if we're doing it for what it is that we're building, why can't we do it for now? So why can't we do it in building these daily videos? Why can't I do that? So it's a simple question, but it ultimately just unlocks a new mental shift in terms of how to think about these things, which ultimately gives me this high level take that I have had and thought about, is output compounds, start small. So like I've always said in my daily videos prior, like, you always think about catching this big wave of momentum, but the momentum that ultimately leads you to that big wave, what if it is all these small consistent actions that you take on a day-to-day basis that ultimately lead you to you having that big massive wave of momentum, or you reaching your overarching goal, and saying, hey, shipping daily, and momentum snowballs. Your big friend momentum is ultimately just gonna allow you to get things done and just scale what it is that you're actively doing on a day-to-day basis. And this has been the number one thing that I have been thinking about, of saying, hey, we need, or I per se need to have this output of saying, hey, I need to output a video every single day. It does not matter how it is, in terms of saying, hey, I started XYZ, just as long as I get the result, which is shipping a video every single day. And that's ultimately allowed me to move the needle in terms of outputting and using output as a habit, and creating that analysis of saying, hey, overthinking is dead. We don't need to procrastinate. I just need to make sure that I am filming a video every single day and I'm on the ball. And then saying, hey, number two is systems are my co-pilots. So going hand in hand and making systems my best friend. I know we build systems, but ultimately I think this is also just important. And saying, hey, I built a rhythm. So filming, repurposing, tracking. So saying, hey, I filmed a video each and every single day for the past 30 days. Now let's repurpose those videos and build a basically a media file or a media catalog of videos that we got from this, and then ultimately just repurpose them on different platforms, which we are still working on at this present moment in time. And I don't know, to be honest, if I am actually gonna do that, because the overarching mission that we have for these specific videos is a bit different. So I just need to figure that out as we go. But in the event that we do need to do that, we ultimately have the content for that. So saying, hey, then we need to also track. So basically tracking the metrics, how many impressions we're getting, how many what is the click through rate looking like, how many people are staying past the 30 seconds, is the hook strong enough, and ultimately just understanding that data. Because one of the things that I have been thinking about, especially making these daily videos, is a saying that Mr. Beast once said, shout out to Mr. Beast, is that your videos are not going to be as good if you don't do 100 different iterations. And I think that is such a powerful thing to think about, in sense of what it is that we're actively building on a day-to-day basis. But even just being in different realms of saying, hey, we want to use videos as a pilot to what it is that we're going to be doing, and ultimately using it as a launching pad as well, to say, hey, I want to make videos because I wanted to launch everything else that we're going to have on the back end. And saying, hey, automating tweets, LinkedIn posts from videos save me 5 hours a week. So saying, hey, we don't constantly need to generate different ideas and all these things. Let's just sit down and then automate these tweets and posts, and then just have them going on each and every day throughout the week, and then just engaging, so that we only have to focus on engagement, which is just basically replying, commenting, and just talking to people. And ultimately that saves us a lot of time. And ultimately also just making sure that we're tracking that, to saying, hey, how many hours are we actively tracking by sitting down for an hour or two on a Sunday, and then ultimately just running tweets and then automating and setting that up? How many hours are we actually saving, and being able to quantify that, to saying, hey, we can leverage this, and ultimately through systems we can create leverage for ourselves, and ultimately allow us to focus on the high level or high needle moving tasks within what it is that we're building out. Is it, hey, we need to roll out a new predictive analysis feature? Is it, hey, we need to ensure that our build out process or the build out roadmap is accurate, and we integrating AI into our systems accurately, and just ultimately just understanding that. And then saying, hey, the biggest mindset shift that I've faced personally through this is I don't drown in chaos anymore. I lean on systems to crank out more with less stress. So basically focusing on output, just outputting a lot more, but doing a lot less, in the sense that that less you then translate it into doing higher leverage work, and ultimately just understanding that has truly moved the needle in terms of these videos specifically, and also just running automated tweets through on X and also LinkedIn as well. And then saying, hey, high level take, which is systems amplify output. I think this is pretty simple. Systems amplify the output that we have. So hey, if we sit for an hour and we automate the tweets, we can post every single day and have engagement through that. So basically increasing our output. And then saying, hey, structure your grind, or it owns you. So basically just creating structure in what it is that we're doing, to make sure that we're not just shooting blanks, and we're not doing things that we aren't aware of, and just making sure that, hey, we need to make sure that we have structure within what it is that we're doing, because if we don't have structure, we're gonna constantly just try we sorry we're gonna constantly just try do new things each and every single day, and that is not the way to go about it. And then saying, hey, confidence comes from reps. So what changed? Like I said in the beginning, day one, I stumbled on cameras so many times to say, hey, this that, but I think that's also good because it's built how I speak now, and also how we're gonna be speaking into the next 5, 10, 20 videos that we're gonna make. So I'm not expecting to be super perfect, at least until the 50th video that I've uploaded. Just practice makes perfect, and I know that from now on, like, understanding how to break down complex topics into something that is understandable and using analogies as well is going to take a bit of time, and I'm okay with that. That's why I per se am super bullish on using these videos as a launch pad for that, and saying, hey, let's just do it, let's just get the result, and then ultimately just build on top of that, which is building new videos that we're going to be pushing out each and every single day. And then saying, hey, now I'm riffing, like, now I just literally just made this document and then just pulled out the camera and just pressed record. Now we're good to go. So simple as that. And then saying the mindset shift is, I trust myself to deliver now, so just focusing solely on the results, because the results are the most important thing. It doesn't matter what else we do, just as long as we get the result, which is ultimately shipping every single day. It doesn't matter if the lighting is off, it doesn't matter if XYZ is off, but as long as we're building that mental muscle of saying, hey, we need to make sure that we're on top of the game in terms of what it is that we're doing, is either making videos, either making posts, either making tweets, what it is that we're doing, we need to make sure that we're outputting at a high level, and we're also constantly just understanding that we need to also iterate on that in order to reach the next level as well. Because I like to believe that there is always a higher level, and you need to be striving for that. Otherwise, you're just going to be stagnant. You're just going to think that what it is that you're doing right now today works, and it's going to work forever. And that mental inertia is ultimately not going to allow you to push the needle and innovate. And this is just my own personal take on that. And then saying, hey, daily videos build a spine of steel. So basically just building a spine of steel in terms of building out daily videos, riffing and making these reps, and just repping so many times, like going to the gym, and ultimately just building that mental muscle to say, hey, if I'm able to output videos each and every single day, then this is gonna only benefit what it is that we're building, because people are gonna understand what it is that we're building, and they're also just gonna understand what mental models we're actively implementing and what it is that we're building. And saying, hey, the high level take that I have for this is basically saying, hey, repetition breeds boldness, to say, hey, output more, fear less. So ultimately saying, hey, we need to get rid of the procrastination factor and just output a lot more and doing less, in terms of saying, hey, we don't always need to reinvent the wheel, in the sense that saying, hey, today we need to think of new video topics, we need to set up this fancy lighting, we need to set up all these different things, and we need to make sure that the editing is on point, all of these things. Unless you're outputting and you're not focusing on the frequency, which right now I just want to be super brute force on this, just making sure that, hey, we need to make sure that we're outputting videos each and every single day, to make sure that, hey, we're learning as fast as possible. Because if we were outputting 2 videos a week, we wouldn't be learning as much as we are learning right now. And just solely just brute forcing it, I know that it's gonna reach a point where brute forcing is not gonna work, and that is gonna allow us to then change and then pivot. But when the time does come, and then we realize that, hey, daily videos isn't cutting it out, so ultimately just understanding that, yeah. So then saying, hey, data drives the wheel. So what changed? I stopped guessing, basically saying, hey, we've gotten 700 videos from these videos now we've made in a month. And then saying, hey, 6% reply bumps on Lemless. So basically our outreach segments that we have made, and I made a video on that yesterday, and saying numbers tell me what slaps, so I double down. So ultimately understanding what slaps, what works, what doesn't work, if it's fire or not, and just solely just understanding, hey, is the data making sense? And I'm super bullish on this. If you look look back to my earlier videos when I talked about the chaos feedback cycle and just how that works and how that I think about that, using that framework in terms of saying, hey, we're actively tracking chaos feedback cycles and ultimately just understanding feedback from that and punching that feedback into what it is that we're doing and also categorizing that. And ultimately that allows us to even push out better videos even today, because every dislike or every non-like or every hateful comment, as you would say, is ultimately just feedback, and that feedback ultimately just allows us to build better and scale better into the future. And then saying, hey, the biggest mindset shift that I've had is I'm not winging it anymore. Data is my map. I'm wired to optimize fast, so if we get data, we need to make sure that we're optimizing fast and we're not taking the time, because speed is super important in terms of output as well, so that you can use that speed and ultimately just learn from that. And saying, hey, the high level take that I've had from this is output's power is in feedback, and saying measure it, tweak it, and win big. Ultimately saying the output that we're having needs to be backed up by feedback, which ultimately creates data, and from that data we can build better and scale better into the future. And ultimately just build better products is what I am super bullish and super excited to be doing, just to build better products and to just scale those products into the future. And saying, hey, vision fuels the grind, so each and every single video is tied to the $100 million vision impact that we have had, that we are striving for, and each video is a brick in the empire, saying, hey, we're building the foundation in this. We're not saying, hey, we are there yet, but ultimately saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we started now and just documented it, and just was saying, hey, we're documenting it, and when we get there, we're ultimately gonna have all the records on file of how we were thinking about things, how we failed in thinking about things, how we were wrong, how we were right about certain things, because I know that we're not gonna be right about every single thing. Some things we're gonna get it wrong, and that's okay. It then just becomes a question of how can we then learn from that and ultimately iterate from that and just scale that up into the future, which I know that we're gonna figure that out only with time. And I'm super excited, like I said, to just keep on going down deep in the trenches and just figuring this stuff out. And then saying, hey, the mindset shift is I just don't make videos anymore. I build legacy. So basically this is a play into the future, and we're not just making videos just for the fun of it. We're not just making content just to say, hey, we want to show you XYZ. We just genuinely want to solve problems and solve pains where people or businesses and organizations are actually feeling it. And then saying, hey, pains fuel when you see the end game. So hey, if you see the end game, then you're gonna understand what it is that is fueling us. And I spoke about this, I think, in yesterday's video when I was saying, hey, we need to make sure that we have fuel to the vision, to making sure that, hey, the purpose, that's it, the purpose. I was speaking about purpose, and I was saying, hey, we need to have fuel to the purpose that ultimately keeps us in the game much longer, because ultimately having that end purpose and saying, hey, this is our purpose and this is how we're actively building momentum, or these small wins, waves to that, is ultimately how we're gonna get there, is an approach that I am super bullish on and super believe in. And saying, hey, I believe that we're gonna take this approach and we're gonna win through this approach. And then saying, hey, that's the high level take. And then saying, hey, this is the high level take that we're gonna have, which is vision turns output into purpose, understanding your why and the how gets easier. So saying, hey, vision turns output into purpose, so our vision ultimately leads us to then creating output, which is action, and then consistency ultimately leads us to our purpose by catching those small waves, and then makes the why and how easier, because once we understand the why, it becomes easier to understand how we can do that, to say, hey, we have this massive goal. It doesn't make sense how we're gonna get there, but ultimately let's just take action, and through action let's be consistent through that action, and through that clarity comes in, and through that clarity we then understand how to build better and scale better into the future, and also use these videos as a launching pad, like I said, to ultimately just allow us to build better feedback loops, mental models, and also frameworks. And then saying, hey, this is what is next. So let's just talk about what is next in terms of July's game plan. So July for these videos, I don't think stopping these videos right now when you're on such a roll is a good idea. Like, I'm having so much fun with these, and I wanna just keep on doing this. But internally, what June's plan is scaling acquisition, our internal acquisition structure, to 10 calls per week. So that is the goal that we are having to scale that within. Testing predictive alerts. So we're now just going to be integrating our predictive alerts analysis in a new way, and then ultimately just testing that out as well, and then saying, hey, we're assessing prioritizing Chaos OS or something else. I can't go too much into that, but yeah, just prioritizing. We're just going to be testing out, understanding what it is that we can do so that we can help other people scale. So we just don't want to just be limited by helping 3-4 people at once, but we ultimately just also just want to assess, is the risk factor worth taking to say, hey, let's prioritize Chaos OS. From what we have learned, is now the right time, which probably it isn't, but ultimately just assessing that and looking at the long-term vision of how that's going to play out even now, I think is super important, just to also just make sure that, hey, in as much as we're focusing on today, we also just need to take 1% or 2% and focus it on into the future. And then saying, hey, with the video side, it's going to be upload daily, because those just keep the flow going. Like, I'm just having so much fun with these daily videos, and I don't want to stop because it just keeps the flow going if I continue. So I don't want to stop just yet. I just want to keep continuing making these videos each and every single day. I don't know which day we'll get to, but we'll ultimately just keep making adjustments where we need to. And yeah, it's been a fun 30 days, and it's gonna be a fun other into the future. We're just going to be building better internally, just scaling up what it is that we're going to be doing. And I'm looking to make slightly more deep technical videos, like how we're actively doing stuff on a much deeper level. So I'll be testing that out throughout this month to say, hey, let's just dive a lot deeper than we have, because in the first month I just wanted to take it surface level, and then I had 2 videos where I kind of sort of dive deep into it. But then now I'm looking to scale that or dive a lot deeper into the future videos, and I am super excited for that. So we're just going to be continuing to just scale up and fixing things, breaking things, making sure things work, and ultimately just building better so that we can scale better, getting feedback from these videos, and ultimately just building better products and building cool things that people would use and actually find value in. And I'm super excited for the future and what it is that we're going to be building out. I don't know what the roadmap would look like into the next month or 2 months in terms of videos, but I'm super excited and I'm super confident that we are going to get there to our overarching goal, and it's only a matter of time before we get there. And I know that through these videos, these consistent actions, we're just gonna catch that wave that is ultimately gonna catapult us into making or creating the value that we believe we can create into the future at a much bigger scale and a much higher levels, and at a much higher level as well. So yeah, that's just my take on it. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to connect with me on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, and Instagram as well. And make sure to yeah, just make sure to pop me a message if you have any questions or if you just want to chat it up and anything. So yeah, just connect with me on those social platforms, and I'll see you guys in the next video.